Tag in Connecticut, you are up. Then we're going to Chris in South Carolina.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you, Ben. God, thanks for setting this up. And I'm just thankful I didn't follow the question after Chris Petruski. Ben, no, I mean that in a sincere way. Thanks for being vulnerable there. That spoke to me in so many different ways, and at the crux of, I think, of who I am, what I do too. Just by you sharing that tells us you believe in us, and I appreciate that. You hit on three key things. I've been an athletic administrator at the collegiate level and the interscholastic level. The interscholastic level is my wheelhouse. I love the ability to have an impact on kids and families and coaches and teachers there. I had a high school coach that believed in me, and I learned that lesson from him, and I've been able to carry that forward. When I transitioned from collegiate athletics to high school athletics, I met with a mentor. I said, you know, what am I looking at when I get into this? And he goes, do you like serving others? If you don't do it. So the service and others. And then the everlasting message I've developed over time is the legacy piece, teaching young people, you know, life lessons, and doing that. In talking to coaches, I think it's a generational conversation. It's 30 years ago, there's coaches, I think, having this conversation. But I was wondering if you could give me and some others insight on the coaches that you've worked with, working with, say, college age students anyway. Some of the college coaches that have been around for a while, but I still consider young, in their late 40s, early 40s, they talk about having trouble connecting with kids. And you've given a ton of meat and information today about that, especially in that soul of the belief system. But I was curious, in terms of symptoms, problems, and solutions, what are some other things coaches are doing to deal with that issue, especially coming out of the COVID piece for 2 years?
Yeah, so there's a huge shift. And so with your experience, this will resonate with you. Those that have been in athletics for a long time, Chris, Scott, this will all resonate with so many of you when you hear this. When we were young kids, that coach could come up, put that finger right in your face, drop some fire, and you were ready to attack. Like, it is a different world today. Like, that doesn't happen. These kids are innately selfish. These kids are confused. These kids are torn by NIL money. You know, these kids are distracted by social media. It's a different world. And one of the things that I encourage coaches today is to embrace the importance of this burn. And the burn is so critically important. So this underlying burn comes out in different ways, okay? So my mother is my burn. When I think of my mother's name, I see that name on the alarm clock. There's no hitting the snooze button. There's no wasting a day. That's my fire. That then ignites my why and my purpose, which causes the discipline. So why comes in the form of sacrifice for people. Maybe you're sacrificing for somebody. There's somebody that's little eyes watching you and how you show up. Or maybe somebody sacrificed for you and you're not going to waste that sacrifice. And so when I start, I remember my first talk at Alabama, within 5 minutes, everything I shared about my mother coming to the dinner table with an IV stand, 24-hour nursing care in the house, my dad being a drug addict, alcoholic, the whole bit. There were tears in my eyes in front of the Alabama Crimson Tide football team, in front of North Dakota State when I first gave my talk there, Kansas State, NFL teams I've worked with. That's the first thing that they hear. Because the reason is, if we can't allow these players who are distracted to be selfish first, to go find that inner fire, we're never going to be able to connect them to what it's going to take to actually put in the work, because things are different these days. And so if we start with that underlying fire that's in their heart, and then the goal is from there, let's understand their why and their purpose, how they think. They're then going to give you the discipline. They're going to have a desire to follow through with the discipline. They're going to want to attack with discipline. So we have to allow these young men and these young women to be selfish first and understand, why are you going to silence the distractions? Why are you not going to pay attention to NIL, even though it's a great thing? Why are you going to become part of a team when it's easy to be selfish these days? Let them be selfish first. Then you bring that fire together, and that's when you establish culture. So one of the linebackers rooms with one of the teams that I work with, I've encouraged the coaches in the offseason, make sure in your meetings in the offseason, you get more time with these guys. I want these guys standing up in your room, sharing their story, sharing their burn. So when they put their damn hand in the dirt come the fall, they know that the guy to the left of them, the guy to the right of them, what he's been through, what he's fighting for, he knows what you're fighting for. And that fire is something we're going to attack with that you're not going to be able to mess with. It's a whole different 60-minute fight when we all know what that burn's about. And so now when you walk into that coach's linebacker room, not only have they all shared the story, they all have made their burn one word. So now when everybody sees their one word, they remember what the burn is. So if you can imagine, you look up on this wall and these kids have now been given permission to be transparent, to be vulnerable. This is my fire. I want you to know about me so we can go fight together. And they see that one word. So the player owns it, their teammates see it, and now they're ready to go and step into that burn and that fire and that fight together. And so, you know, that to me is the difference these days. And if we don't go there with these young, distracted players, then it's never going to allow us to have performance. And let me just share this, because I think this is so important. NIL, for any of you that are in the sports world or people who are influenced by NIL, this NIL thing, I have no problem with kids getting paid. Coaches make a lot of money, kids make a lot of money, these programs make but you got to teach these kids that the $100,000 that they just received because they were good in high school, like, how do I protect that money? How do I keep that money? Because there's too many players who see the 100,000 as the end. They don't realize the $100,000 is a deposit that somebody says, God gave you something great, you've been using it. That's a $100,000 deposit on the $100 million bag that's waiting for you in the NFL. And these coaches aren't doing a good enough job of teaching these players how to navigate through how tough it is. Think of you when you were 18 years old. Somebody gave you a bag of $100,000 of cash. What would you have done? Right? And so we have to understand what's in these players' minds rather than just forcing them. Here's what I know, go do it. To me, it just doesn't work anymore. You've got to build a culture, and it's got to start with that fire for each player.
Awesome. Thank you so much.